My name is Gershon Rabinowitz. We're joined by a very special guest who's called two different sports, both nationally and locally. And here to tell you about it is the radio voice of the New York Mets, Josh Lewin. And it's an honor to have you on the show.
Hey, Gershon, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Josh, you grew up in Atlanta and then you moved to Rochester as a youngster. Which major league team did you root for growing up?
Well, I started out as an Orioles fan of all things, and kind of quickly became a Mets guy when I was maybe 11, 12 years old. We got the Mets games into Rochester a lot on WOR television, and I just kind of got hooked. So the Mets became my team. I stayed with them through college, which was when they were winning in '86 and all that. So we'd like for them to be winning again, but we'll wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, and it's ironic that you watch them on WOR TV. The Mets were on Channel 9 for a long time, and WOR AM is where you call the games with Howie Rose now. At 16 years old, you became the play-by-play voice of the Rochester Red Wings, AAA affiliate to the Baltimore Orioles. How did you become the voice of a professional baseball team before you were able to vote or drink?
Well, I had some help there. I mean, I wasn't actually the voice. I was, kind of like the number two guy, pretty much what I am now with Howie Rose and the Mets. And basically there was a general manager that thought it would be kind of a Barnum and Bailey kind of, marketing thing to have a young kid on the air like that. And I had been begging and pleading to intern or do something. I just wanted to be close to baseball and, would show up at the games with my tape recorder and work on my play-by-play. And one thing led to another. I got the internship that I wanted. And when I kept on clamoring to, see if they could maybe stick me on the air somehow, this guy actually said, you know what, that's not a half bad idea. Let's give it a shot. And I started out just reading scores and things like that, and it blossomed into some play-by-play, and it was really the impetus for my start at the business. Yeah,
I mean, and you were able to parlay that for about 10 years. You began by the mid-1990s as a radio host on WBAL in Baltimore. You filled in on some Oriole games, and then by the time Major League Baseball on Fox, when Fox launched their coverage, you were an unknown announcer on a national level, but on a local level, you've done games. How did you end up getting the job at Fox when Fox was starting up their baseball coverage to be one of their play-by-play voices?
Yeah, it was just another really big break. Right place, right time. They wanted young guys. They already had Joe Buck, and they had Tom Brenneman lined up. Chip Carey originally was going to be their third, and they just kind of ran out of guys that had famous dads. They figured, for our fourth guy, let's get another young dude, but who nobody knows, and we can really just kind of mold him and shape him a little bit. And that just happened to be what they were looking for, and just happened to be who I was. So they had me audition, and I won the audition, and it was definitely the biggest break I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, you were at Fox for about 15 years or so until you took the Met job, and you did a variety of sports for that network. And I think the first 2 years you did Major League Baseball on Fox with Ken Singleton. Do you ever see Ken Singleton now that the two of you are working in the same market in New York?
Yeah, I wish we saw each other more often. We really only see each other when the Mets and the Yankees play, but he was a real, and still is, just such a good guy, and that was very helpful because I really didn't have any TV experience. Mine was all radio and, trying to learn that part of the business on the fly. He was very patient and very kind. I owe Ken a big debt, so I always like seeing him when the Mets and the Yankees get together.
While you were at Fox, you were broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs for a year with Harry Carey. Then you were with the Tigers for a few years, and then, of course, for a long time with the Texas Rangers. Some may not know, and I read this in your book, that Alex Rodriguez played a role in you becoming the play-by-play man in Texas. What was it like covering A-Rod and working in those 9 seasons in Texas as a play-by-play man?
Yeah, I loved my time in Texas. Towards the end, things changed a little bit. There was new ownership, and they had kind of a different idea of what they wanted the broadcast to sound like than what I did. And, we just kind of agreed to go our separate ways. But right up until then, I had a great time. Alex was there the first couple of years that I was there. He was one of the people that actually endorsed me when they were looking to bring in a new television guy. I guess that was 01 or 02, whatever that was. And it's weird because, I certainly never had any big dealings with Alex one way or another, but for whatever reason, he knew of my work and put in a good word for me, and that certainly helped.
And since John Daniels became the GM of the Texas Rangers, Texas has won 2 American League championships. They've been to the playoffs multiple times. This year, however, due to injuries, the team fell on hard times, and it led to the departure of Ron Washington. Do you still think that John Daniels is the right man for the job, considering everything that happened in the past season?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it was just one of those everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong kind of season for the Rangers. And I still think they've got a great farm system, and I don't know of a harder working GM in baseball than John. And he's a New Yorker. Another guy grew up a Mets fan, and so he had some brownie points for that. But the Rangers should have a better year this year, and I still wish them very well. And John certainly is on that list.
And when you were with Texas, they were going through a rebuilding process. Now that you've joined the Mets, they're going through a rebuilding process. Are there any similarities between the two paths that the teams are taking?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that's a good observation that, if all goes well, it's just all about identifying which prospects to hold on to and which ones you can afford to trade away to get something that you need. And, the Mets are in a position now where they've got a deep enough farm system where, if they correctly identify which guys are going to hit and which guys they can afford to get rid of to bring in something else that they need, I think they've got a real shot.
As I mentioned, your broadcast partner is Howie Rose. How does it feel to be working with him, given his encyclopedic knowledge of New York Mets baseball?
Well, it's amazing. And, one thing that it took me a couple of years to learn is that it kind of takes the pressure off me. I really don't need to know every last thing that's ever happened with the Mets because he already does. So I'll never outmet Howie just because he is such a treasure trove of information like that, and he's been phenomenal to work with. I mean, just kind of showing me the ropes of how things work here in New York, and he's been just a great friend, and he's obviously a very talented broadcaster too.
And it's just a great contrast in styles. I mean, the two of you just in the booth, I mean, the chemistry is there. It's one of the best broadcast teams to listen to on the radio. It really feels like, you're listening to your friends have a baseball conversation.
Well, thanks. I mean, that's, I think it's quite natural. We just happen to be a couple guys that enjoy each other's company and enjoy Mets, enjoy baseball. And, hopefully that continues to translate on the air that way. And that's how I think a broadcast should sound too. You can't really fake chemistry. It's either there or it's not. And I'm happy that people feel that way because I do.
And the Mets last season, they were 79-83. Their pitching was outstanding. So many young guys that they had, even without Matt Harvey on that pitching staff. But the offense struggled a little bit last year. The Mets intend to move the fences at Citi Field. They've already started to come up with the dimensions already. What impact will the fences have on the pitchers negatively and positively on the bat?
Yeah, I mean, kind of remains to be seen, but I would think that a guy like Curtis Granderson maybe can get off to a quicker start and get his confidence down. And David Wright, if he's healthy, can start hitting the ball to right field for power again, which Mets fans know is part of his game. But you're right. The flip side of that is you got to make sure you're keeping the ball in the yard when the other guy hits.
And also confidence for some of the young pitchers because they know that they were pitching in a large ballpark. They moved the fences in. This is going to be the second time that they're going to do it at Citi Field. So the pitchers, you don't want to have them lose the confidence, and they got to be able to throw strikes and pretty much do the job that they've been able to do. Over the past calendar year, there's been much discussion here in New York about the Mets opting not to sign big-ticket free agents. Can the Mets strictly build a contender utilizing solely their farm system?
Yeah, but they need a free agent or two to just kind of, fluff it out. And I think Kansas City's a good example of that. They're a mostly homegrown unit, but they plugged in with James Shields where they needed to, and that seems to be the template. I mean, Oakland could have claimed the same thing, but obviously they kind of veered off, but they were headed towards the same thing. So yeah, the Mets I think will try to borrow from that stencil, and hopefully that bears some fruit because Mets fans are ready for it.
And the New York Mets, they have a surplus of talent young pitching, as I mentioned, throughout their farm system. With the return of Matt Harvey, will the Mets trade an arm for a bat in that lineup, knowing that there's such a need for a bat somewhere in the order with Randerson and with David Wright?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, especially now that, for example, Michael Kadire appears to be off the market. That's a stopgap bat they could have gone and tried to sign, but, it could be they have to actually trade for one now. And, again, it's about identifying which players you can afford to trade to get something back. But, you have to be okay with the fact that it takes something to get something. You can't just trade a pile of nothing to get something of value.
And some people don't realize that you also call Chargers football. Could you describe the preparation when you were at Fox and when you were with Texas? Like when you have, let's say in late August or September, when you have 3 days in a row, when you were going from one sport to another, how did you prepare and how did you stay focused on each sport to be able to do that in such compressed time?
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure, but one that I really liked. Kind of you try to clear your deck, just day by day that, okay, today's a football day or today's a baseball day, and you just kind of have everything in files, and you just grab the files that you need when you need them and try not to get too far ahead of yourself. But, as a guy that likes both sports, that's a fun time. It's a challenging time, but August and September is always interesting, and, the long plane flights back and forth from New York to San Diego, that's actually when I get all my best work done because it's 5-6 hours, the phone's not ringing, there's no email to worry about, and you just kind of hunker down and get stuff done.
Yeah, I remember that you would do a game, let's say some Texas Rangers or something, and then you would go and do a Major League Baseball on Fox, maybe even a National League game to the game of the week, and that must have been tough because you would have to prepare from a football game to a local game to a national game. How did you find the time? It was just on the planet?
Yeah, well, and just kind of sneak in, whenever else you can. I would just kind of grit my loins, for those 6 weeks. Today, what my life is going to be. It's just going to be, one set of preparation, one set of spotting boards after another. But I liked it. I still do. It's a labor of love, and it doesn't really feel like work.
And as part of your broadcasting style, you always evoke a lot of pop culture references. You might mention Seinfeld, you might mention Family Guy, you might mention The Simpsons, and anything that goes on, or even a movie or something. Where does that originate from, having that type of broadcasting style? And do you have a favorite Seinfeld episode?
I like them all. It's tough to pick just one. It's like picking your favorite child, if you have a bunch of kids. But, I think, I don't know if this is right or wrong. It's just kind of, the basic advice that I remember getting when I was coming up in the business is to talk about what you know and talk about what you love. I love baseball. I love the Mets. I love some of those shows that you mentioned. And you don't want to do anything too nichey, if you're the only person that happens. I like the show Archer, but I don't think enough people watch it that I can start quoting from it, but if something's mainstream enough, and you can help make a point by borrowing from it, then, I just think it makes it a little bit more interesting, and, it's not for everybody, I understand that, but it's what I'm comfortable with, and hopefully enough people like that too.
Do you have a favorite Seinfeld episode? Because I know that you quote a lot of stuff from Seinfeld, and you'll try to get that into the broadcast, always within the context of the game, but do you have a particular favorite episode?
Yeah, I wish I could pick just one. Whatever one was just on Channel 11 or on CBS is probably the one I'm gonna grab for. But I haven't gotten to know Keith Hernandez these last few years. I guess it'd be tough to vote against the big 60-minute Keith episode.
Yeah, that was definitely a classic episode. And in addition to broadcasting, you're also a musician. I found your MySpace page one day. Like a lot of songs on there. You performed publicly in pianos in New York City. Could you have seen yourself as a professional musician and songwriter had you not become a play-by-play man?
I think it would have been a tough road. I still like to dabble in it, and it's a hobby, but that's a really competitive business, and I don't think I had the connections or any of the quick start kind of networking that I did doing what I'm doing now. And I hear all these stories about people in Nashville, people in LA that have been there for 20 years just trying to get one song heard by somebody, and I'm very happy just to keep that as a hobby.
Music is pretty much just the luck of the draw. You got to pretty much know who you know, and then see where the opportunities lie. And the final question is, what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to break into the sports and maybe covering baseball or something that wants to start out for the first time? What would be the best advice to give them?
Well, the first thing is to believe in yourself, and kind of trite, I'm sure, but to just not let anybody knock you off your dream. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people giving you reasons why it can't happen, and you need to kind of tune that out and concentrate on making things happen. And a lot of it is luck, a lot of it is who you know, and just being in the right place at the right time. But like Branch Rickey said, luck is a residue of design. You put yourself in a position where you can meet people, where you might get your work heard, and there's no substitute for hard work. It's just like if you want to get more muscle definition, you go into the gym and you lift weights. And, the only way to get better at baseball play-by-play is to do it, even if it's just turning down the sound on the TV and practicing or going to your local American Legion game. You just got to work through it and just keep working and believe in yourself. And I've been lucky enough that things have happened nicely for me, and I would try to pass that on to anybody else who wants to try to get in, because it's a great way to make a living, no doubt.
You definitely say that. It's pretty much that you have to, practice makes perfect. In words of a true pro, just to be able to follow your dream, follow your heart, and hope that the opportunity presents itself. And people could find you on Twitter at Josh Lewin Stuff, and they could listen to you calling Chargers football during the fall and then Mets baseball during the summer.
Right on. And I really appreciate you having me on, too. It sounds like a great show. I wish you all with it. And, like I say, anybody who's trying to build this particular dream or some offshoot of it, again, it's going to sound really trite, but just, don't let anybody tell you no. And just keep working at it. And, there's a lot of good things that can happen.
Thanks for joining us, Josh. It's been an honor. Time to say goodbye. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Go get them, Gersh. Appreciate it, buddy. Be well.